Christmas. That great celebration of Jesus is coming to earth, and I want to kind of highlight that also theologically, if you will, right? God came to us and revealed himself to us on our turf. And through that incarnation, God being one of us, if you will, God united himself with his creation, and he opened the door for redemption that will come in full and be manifested when the very one who came gave himself for us on the cross. This was indeed the greatest gift ever. Why? Because it revealed to us more than anything that the one who gave knew our deepest need. And he gave that and revealed to us his connection, deep connection with us. The giver let us know how much he knows and loves us. You know, true gifts are always an expression of love, right? The Bible summarized the whole gospel by saying, "For God so loved the world that he gave." And the record of Christ's birth even include gifts giving. By the Magi, they gave gifts. So I ask that you'll allow me to read not Luke 2, which is the common story we read in connection with Christmas, but Matthew chapter 2. I'll read the first 11 verses with you. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of King Herod, wise men came from the east, arrived in Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star at his rising and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was deeply disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. So he assembled all the chief priests and the scribes of the people and asked them where the Christ would be born. "In Bethlehem of Judea," they told him, "because this is what was written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, because out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people, Israel." Then Herod secretly summoned the wise men and asked them the exact time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child, and when you find him, report back to me so that I too can go and worship him." After hearing the king, they went on their way, and there it was, the star they had seen at his rising. It led them until it came and stopped above the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overwhelmed with joy. Entering their house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and falling to their knees, they worshiped him. They opened their treasures and presented him with gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. You know, the gifts that these magi, they're also called, the wise men, show us that they recognized who it was that the gifts were for. And you have to kind of ask the question, how did they know? How in the world would they know? Nothing external indicated anything like this. His parents of this child were poor, or at least at best middle class. There's a lot of good arguments for saying that people who are doing what Joseph was doing, carpentry, building houses, furniture, and that kind of stuff, they usually belonged to the middle class. But why would they bring this kind of gift to these kinds of people. They seem to belong to a completely different kind of echelon of society. There will be nothing that indicated that. So how do we think about this? They must have heard a voice in their inner being that said, "This is it. This is what you need to go." And I want us to just stop and reflect a little bit on this before we kind of get into the gift and considering what they are themselves. Let me try to see if I can set the stage, or what might even be kind of what made it possible for them to even get to this point of discovering Jesus. There might be some of you here that are wondering, how do they find that? How do I find Jesus? What's going on in my life? Where am I looking at? What is going on? How do I get to this point? There's so much hidden in this text that we can so easily miss because we have known the story, we've read the story, we have heard it, for some of us, a billion times. But I hope we see some things in this text today that we may not have considered earlier. Matthew, of course, as many of you know, is the only one who recounts this story, and we're not sure why that is. And maybe he kind of connected with these magi in some way, or there's something in that story about them that resonated with him. We're not sure. We really know very little about them. Even in Matthew's story, we hear very little. Early legends said that there was probably 12 of them. And then that later on turned into 3 because there was 3 gifts. And then other legends gave them names like Casper and Melchior and Balthasar. And then some were trying to connect them with the 3 sons of Noah. And then by that say they're representative of the whole world that came then to Jesus. We know none of that. That's all speculation. But what we do know is that here are people from the East. That means that they're not Jews. They did not grow up with any kind of awareness of the true living God, the creator of all that there is. They had no sense of the promises of God. They knew no scripture about God. They had not grown up hearing stories about the history of God's dealing with his people. They had just studied the universe. They were magi. That means that they were astrologers. That's probably, they were kind of a scientist, if you will, of the day. And they were looking at the universe. And in that process, they had seen something that had convinced them that something majestic was going to happen, that a higher divine being had spoken to them about the birth of someone who was not just going to be a kind of geographical king of certain areas, but something was going to happen. We can't say much more about these people other than they are good spiritual people who recognize that there's something more going on, and they had to figure out what that was. They were seekers and not satisfied with what they had. Think about that just for a moment. They felt that they needed to pursue this. Can I get you into the story? Just kind of see if you can live into it. They're far away in the east, most likely in Babylon. And they see something. They get convinced about something. Some inner voice, something inside them said, this is what we need to do. They had everything. It's not like, I need to kind of seek and search for some better life or something. They had it all, and we know that. And we think, how do you know that? We don't know much. Well, just look at them. They traveled the way they traveled across the known world, just like that. And when they arrive in Jerusalem, they find it completely easy to just enter into the palace and then get an audience with the king himself. They were used to being in those kind of echelons of society. They were well-to-do folks that were not kind of shying away. They were not little peasants that were trying to figure life out. But they heard something, and they had to do something. They were not willing to just kind of say, well, here we are in Babylon. Life is pretty good. And I know it's kind of, that's something we need to figure out. But, I can do it. If I can't do it from my chair, it's not really happening. Think about that for a moment. How do you react when the Spirit prompts your heart, whispers to your inner being? Do you just stay where you are, comfortably so, not really paying all that much attention, and certainly not willing to uproot where you are and change life around as you know it? Maybe it was just, a weird fluke of a thought. Maybe that was just something going on and I had this conviction, but in reality, I can't change. Too many things going on. I can't change right now. Is that your reaction when the Spirit prompts? And Jesus, even in this time, is saying, I'm coming, and I'm coming to you. I want to change your life. I want you to come worship me. Just think about it for a moment, right? Do you recognize that you're hearing God's voice in a strong way? So that you sense that when you listen to this voice, you'll have to maybe uproot, or at least you have to get out of your comfort zone and maybe start on a journey. For many, that's where that begins. You start on this long journey, and you're not sure exactly where you're going. All you know is that God will lead the way, and it's kind of scary. Getting up and out of our comfort zones, because God speaks to our inner being and said, I need you to go find my son. It's not easy, friends. It's not easy. It was not for them, nor is it for us. But then I want to really point to something that I don't know that I've seen that before this year ever. I was reading back through the text and talking to God about showing what I might share. Notice a contrast that is almost so big it's hard to speak. The Magi came to Jerusalem, and they went, of course, where they thought they will find an answer to their search. They knew they're going to find a king of some sort, something that they had seen as they had studied, something that had come to them as they had pursued truth and knowledge. And so here, as they come, they just go to the place where they thought that here's our answer's going to be. And they were. They went to the palace, and here they met people who knew God, people who had grown up with the stories of Israel, people who worshiped God, people who knew about the promises of God, people who were accustomed to reading the scriptures of God. In fact, they met the best of the best. They met the Bible teachers. They met those who actually studied the Bible all the time. They met the ones that were going to church, if you will, or to the temple all the time. They met the best. And then these people spoke to them. And they told them exactly what they needed to know, where they could find the Messiah. He's got to be in Bethlehem. It's over in Judah, they said. And we know that because the scripture reveals that. And we have studied this, and we know it. Just think of this for a moment. here's the contrast. It's incredible, really. Have you ever wondered about these priests, about these scribes or Bible teachers, good, faithful students of Scripture? Why did they stay? Why didn't they go? They could have followed the Magi or the wise men. They were in the know, but they didn't go. Think about that. Is that really possible? When I saw that, it kind of stopped me in the tracks. Is it really possible to know and not be willing to go? They could have gone themselves. And you say, well, and in all fairness, that's fair enough. It's been a long, long time since the prophet had first promised that the Messiah would come. So 800 years at least have kind of passed since Isaiah. And so, you kind of get, we do that also with the second coming of Christ. You kind of get numb to that. We know it, but, we're not really making that change much. But then notice this. Here they come, these people who had no knowledge of Scripture, who had not grown up with any of that, who did not know about the promises of God, and you wonder how in the world they even knew about the Messiah of God. And they come and they ask, where is he going to be born? If nothing else had made these scribes, these Bible students, think this should, say maybe we should check it out too. We're in the know. We can tell them where. But they didn't go. Are you hearing what the Bible is saying here? I hope you are. This is a challenge to all of us. If they had really taken serious that God's Messiah would come as Scripture indeed had promised, this seems to be the time to check it out. So the question again, is it truly possible that you can know God, you can know His promises, you know all about it, but it has no real effect on your life? Those are the kind of things that I had to ask myself as I was reading through this text for this Advent and Christmas season. And now what happened to those who went? Notice this. The Magi who went, what happened to them? They came to the house when they had, and when they were coming in, that house they were looking for, there it was, and they entered the house, and what did they do? They saw Jesus. And what they do? They worship. Their lives were forever changed. Completely changed. I had to ask myself when I saw that, they saw the house, they entered the house, and they saw Jesus. What do people see when they come to my house? There's a great story, incredible story really, in 2 Kings chapter 20. It's about King Hezekiah. And Hezekiah was terminally ill. And so it says, the Bible says, you can read it when you get back, 2 Kings chapter 20, that he cried out to God. He cried out to God. He told God all the good things that he had ever done, asking, Lord, will you heal me? And God heard his prayer, and he healed him, gave him 15 more years to live. And to celebrate that, he had all the kings around, people coming in, all the way from Babylon, really, to come in. And they were reading letters, and they were seeing, and he was showing them around noble folks and entourages and all that coming in. And when they had left, celebrating that God had given him new life, Isaiah the prophet came and asked Hezekiah, what? Listen to this. What did they see in your house. And Hezekiah said, I showed them all my treasures, my money. I showed them my armory. I showed them all the beautiful things, the expensive spices, the perfumes. I showed them the everything. My stalls, my horses, my garages, I guess we would call it today. I showed them all of it. There was nothing they didn't see. What did they see in your house? All the stuff. It says nothing about him. He showed them the place where I was on my knees, or laying face down prostrate before God, crying out for God to heal my life, and he heard my prayer. He told them nothing about the worship band. Here are the musicians that helped me sing the praises to God as I was asking for his goodness. He didn't show them the holy scrolls where he read and knew about the promises of God. What did they see in your house? In Mary's house, they came in and they saw Jesus. And they worshiped. In Hezekiah's house, they came in and saw his stuff, and they left. This is riveting, friends, to notice, and it's right there in the text. Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it almost. And so they came, and they brought gifts that explain. Now, see, time is almost up, so let me do it a little bit quick. They brought gifts that explains what they had seen, what they had heard that voice say, that here's something different. The first thing they gave was gold. You know, gold is this incredible metal. It cannot tarnish. It cannot rust. If you find a piece of gold that a little bit in the dirt for decades and there's tarnish on it, it's not the gold that is tarnished. It's whatever other metal that is mixed into it, if it's not pure gold. It's an incredible kind of precious metal, and we know it even today a little bit. So some people will have noticed that, you know, if stock goes down, people buy gold because it has a stable kind of value. Gold is a precious metal that cannot be blemished, given to the one whose life was to be unblemished both before God and man. Of all the kind of metals they could have given, gold was it, because it was durable. It lasts forever. It was a treasure given to the one about whom it said that all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge is hidden in him. It was that kind of gold that would last also forever. There was no end to it. It was an everlasting, if you will, kind of metal given to the one who says that before Abraham was, I am. The one about whom John writes that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The one about whom also Paul says that he's above all creation, the firstborn of all. We can go on and on. Gold is that symbol of treasure and wealth. And you can't stop but to wonder, why would that give them? What were they thinking when they received it? It didn't fit that you gave that to someone who was born in a manger. Unless, of course, those who gave it knew and have a deep sense of conviction that this child was a special child whose kingdom would last forever. You know, kingship and gold goes together. I'm not telling you anything you don't know here. I don't think so. Right? It was as late as 1977. You think that it can't be, but it's true. They found the tomb of Philip of Macedonia. If you don't know who he is, he was the father of Alexander the Great. And when they found the tomb, they found him wrapped in gold, because that was fitting for a king who was to be father of one of the great kings of history. And here they were, presenting gold. But it moved from there. Also, they brought him frankincense, incense. You know, the word we use today, frankincense, comes from an old French word that means high quality incense. And you wonder, what's with that? Well, incense was used especially in the temple because they were convinced that everything about you needed to be involved in worship. It was not just your sense of seeing or hearing or touching or anything else, even movement, but you got to be involved also with your sense of smell. Think about that. All of that reminded them of the worship of all. And here they are, given that, and that particular high quality kind of incense was used especially for the installation or ordination and ointment of the high priest, the one who was to intercede in a special way for his people. That was given to the child. Where all the earthly high priests would have to continue again and again and again to bring animal sacrifices, this child would once and for all bring himself as a sacrifice. And he continues to intercede for his people. Are you seeing the power of these gifts given to someone who knows who they're giving it to? And then the last thing is kind of interesting also with myrrh. You know, that I don't know what I would have thought if I was Joseph and Mary, right? Myrrh is a spice, it's an extract. It is used to embalm people, to make what is last. I mean, how in the world are you receiving that for a newborn child? Unless, of course, you know that the life of this person is going to be special, that death is going to be special, that this life is going to live forever, be preserved for all eternity. He's going to be the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords and the high priest for all of us. Think of that. 3 gifts given that explains who he is, that little child. But it came to them through these people who followed what they had heard the Almighty say, even when they were not clear in the beginning about what they exactly would meet. Now let me round it up simply by saying, as this might be a reminder to you also, this comes to us as well. You know, the gifts, if you think of the gold, the gift that God reaches out to give to us in this time is an everlasting gift. It is going on, cannot be blemished, will not change, everlasting in all its qualities. You should receive it, friend. You really should. It will change your life. Don't be like the scribes. Be like the Magi. All of us have something going on with our sense of smell during Christmas, right? There's something about how the house comes to smell. Whether we're burning certain things, whether with certain spices, with certain foods, there's something, the pine tree, if you have a live tree, something about the smells of Christmas. They brought him the fragrance that forever will remind them that he is the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the one who always will intercede for us, the one God installed as the one who could bring the ultimate sacrifice of atonement. Just think about this, friends. I hope you will have a Merry, Merry Christmas when that comes in just a couple of days. But I tell you this, it will be merry if you follow what happened here in this story and act like the Magi and not the scribe. Come, let us go and see what God has done.